From that, United Nations Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial killings, Agnes Callamard, is presenting a brand new report on the Jamal Khashoggi murder case at this very moment. Let's cut across live and listen in.
Against a backdrop of an increasing role played by private actors in the field of education. By way of example, some 20 years ago, the situation was quite different. Today, compared with 20 years ago, we have doubled our performance, but also the space occupied by private stakeholders in the field of education. By way of example, according to the Global Education Monitoring Report for 2017-2018, in sub-Saharan Africa, 1 in 4 children of primary school age will be enrolled in a private school by 2021. My report recalls that international human rights laws require states to ensure free and good quality public education. My report introduces the guiding principles pertaining to the obligations of states in the field of human rights when it comes to education, and the need to regulate the private sector's involvement in the field of education. These principles are quite recent and are known as the principles of Abidjan. I think that it is worth saying that the Abidjan principles were built by various stakeholders. It was adopted in Côte d'Ivoire, and we should thank Côte d'Ivoire and all of the government of Côte d'Ivoire and the Minister for Education and civil society, which was also very much involved in the development and adoption of the Abidjan principles. The observations and recommendations contained in my report draw on the Abidjan principles, especially when it comes to the obligation to regulate the participation of private stakeholders in the field of education, when it comes to public-private partnerships and the role of donors and civil society. This is about the obligation of states to guarantee and finance.
Away from that, the 4th G20 summit is all set to begin in Osaka in Japan. The theme of this year's summit under the Japanese presidency is human-centered future society, and the focus will be on a range of issues like digital economy and artificial intelligence. World leaders, including France's President Emmanuel Macron, has arrived for the G20 summit in Osaka. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be going to Japan for 2 days, the 28th and 29th, to participate in the summit. This will be his 6th G20 summit and the first in his 2nd term.
See, now we are very keen that the economic offenders and those who are the perpetrators of economic crimes, the holders of black money, should be brought to book. Those who are running away from India should be brought back, and no country should provide them shelter.
Then Iran and trade, climate change, countering terrorism and WTO reforms will be the other focus for India. The summit is happening in the backdrop of a trade war between the world's 2 biggest economies, US and China, and Washington's diminishing commitment to the World Trade Organization.
See, India is of a strong view that global trade should be free from any restrictions, encumbrances. Multilateralism should prevail. It should happen under the aegis of World Trade Organization. The reforming World Trade Organization is necessary, but it should happen in a way that all the countries of the world will have a right to decide how it should be. The WTO should be a forum for growth, forum for equity, forum for inclusiveness.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting plenty of leaders at the summit. He will be meeting Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, US President Donald Trump, Russia's President Vladimir Putin, and China's President Xi Jinping. During last year's summit in the Argentinian capital of Buenos Aires, PM Modi met leaders under the JAI, Japan, America, India grouping, RIC, Russia, India, and China grouping, and a permanent fixture has been the informal BRICS summit. But the big focus will be on the high-stakes meetings between US President Donald Trump and China's President Xi Jinping to resolve issues on Iran and trade. The US-Iran tensions are expected to dominate the discourse throughout the summit. WION's diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Subal gained exclusive access to the media hall at the G20 summit. When he gets us this report from there, take a look.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating at the 14th G20 summit in Osaka. This will be his 6th G20 summit since 2014. But first, in his second term, India will be raising issues such as economic offenders being provided safe haven, black money and energy security. And of course, the Indian Prime Minister will be meeting a whole host of world leaders, including US President Donald Trump, France's Macron, Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe. All in all, he will be having 10 bilaterals and policies all combined. And we also know that there will be two important trilaterals, the Japan, America and India J trilateral, the first of whose meeting took place in last year's G20 summit in Buenos Aires, and the RIC meeting, the Russia, India, China meeting, which has been a tradition. Also an informal BRICS meeting also will be taking place, an important meeting which has become a permanent fixture in the sidelines of the G20 summit.